Every coaster enthusiast knows the big hitters when it comes to coaster manufacturers. Whether it's B&M with their graceful rides, Intamin with their intense launch machines, or RMC throwing injector airtime into every element. However, there are few instances of a coaster being built by a park themselves, also known as being built in-house. So let's dive into a few notable in-house coasters. Starting with perhaps the most famous of all in-house built roller coasters is the Beast at Kings Island, opening as the world's tallest, fastest, and longest wooden roller coaster. While the group that designed and built the coaster would eventually form the DIN Corporation, they would start with the Beast. Now the park wanted to bring in famed designer John Allen, but he had recently retired, so instead he gave the engineers his formulas to use. Now these formulas were closer to railroad curve formulas than modern coaster design, so the team got to work and laid out this absolute monster of a coaster. The ride seems to reflect the design team, in that it's more of a trip through the woods as the world's still longest wooden roller coaster than a showcase of elements. However, to this day, the Beast runs reliably and consistently, and after 42 seasons, shows absolutely no signs of slowing down. The next one is a follow-up to the Beast, as it's son of Beast. While technically designed and built by the Rollercoaster Corporation of America, the ride was taken over halfway through construction by Kings Island. Now this infamous coaster was the world's first and only hyper wooden roller coaster, and it featured a vertical loop upon opening, but it would not last remotely close to as long as its father. Kings Island construction crews inherited a mess, and sometimes in-house builders can't save a doomed attraction. Now let's move down to Thailand, specifically Pattaya Park Funnyland. Back in 1999, they decided to build a launch tower coaster similar to Superman Escape from Krypton, but instead of bringing in Intamin, they decided to use an air launch coaster and build it themselves. Now the biggest caveat here is that this coaster stood there till 2013 but never actually opened to the public. Now at a height of 196 feet, it can be assumed that this would have launched riders to speeds around the 80-mile-per-hour mark, and air launches are notoriously intense. I will have to say, not many coasters make me uneasy, but riding an in-house built compressed air launch just doesn't sit too well with me. Now since 2013, the track has been removed, but the tower still stands at the park. And then we have Lagoon's other in-house coaster, Primordial. While it's slated for a name change, this looks to be a coaster / dark ride enclosed in a mountain. Now it's most likely pushed back to 2023 at this point, but this ride doesn't really have much information known about it. It's expected to be headed by the park for construction, but if it is indeed a dark ride, it's likely an outside company will probably be brought in to design at least that portion of the ride. Either way, once this is finished, it looks to be one of the best themed roller coasters in the world. Then we have Lagoon, which may hold the absolute king of all in-house built roller coasters in Knoebels. This may look like a Gerstlauer, but it's completely designed and built in-house by the park, and it's an absolute monster. An elevator lift takes riders up an enclosed space, pumping tribal drums to a staggering 208 feet before slowly pushing riders over a 116-degree first drop. Follow that up with 4 inversions, including the world's only Lagoon roll, named after the park, which is basically back-to-back heartline rolls facing opposite directions. Now everything about this coaster seems directly out of a video game, and if this is how parks build their own coasters, I want to see more like Knoebels. This next one's a little debatable, but I think I had to include it since it isn't really in-house but was built behind a house. The Blue Flash is perhaps the world's most famous backyard coaster, featuring a crazy inversion as well as a lift hill up a shed. Now John Ivers built the coaster in his backyard in Bruceville, Indiana, and for a 10-second ride, there really isn't quite anything else like it in the world. It's absolutely a true gem of a credit for any enthusiast lucky to ride. Finally, we take a trip down to Pennsylvania's famous free-to-enter amusement park. Knobles actually features 2 in-house built coasters. Now while Phoenix is a relocated Woody and was done mostly by the park, they did have Charlie Din's help, so that's not even one of the 2. However, when park officials wanted to relocate another Woody, Mr. Twister from Elitch Gardens, they decided to adapt the plans for the ride and build it themselves. Now the lateral-filled coaster features 2 lift hills as well as 3,900 feet of track. Now, Twister's standout element is easily the double helix that really drives all the forces you get. Now it's a fun wooden roller coaster built well by the park, and it's definitely better than most DIN Corporation wooden coasters. Then we have perhaps the most unique coaster in almost any park with the world's only wooden bobsled flying turns. Now, it took Knoebels over 7.5 years to get this coaster open. While it started testing as early as 2007, the park didn't open it to the public till 2013. Now, this one-of-a-kind attraction had issues with the car's wheels, the track, the speed in which the trains were going down the track. They were all maintenance issues that delayed the project. Now, it must also be hard to be working on a coaster that don't have any similar makes around, that no one really knows how they work. This was built as a tribute and resurrection of the original bobsled coasters from the early 1900s, which were all made of wood. Now, if you find a bobsled coaster in another park, it's most likely built out of steel. In fact, the park couldn't even find historical plans for this ride, and they had to build it completely from scratch. So that's the list for today. Did I miss any major in-house built roller coasters? Now, if you had to pick a park to try their hand in the coaster design business, which would it be? If you want more coaster content, feel free to check out the other dozens of videos I have on this channel, or Island Coasters on Instagram for daily coaster content, videos, and news. Till next week, that's all from the shores of Island Coasters.